So now we move on to growing as partners. What we're going to do is we'll get to a point where we can have questions and answers. Hopefully the things that we talk about will raise some of those questions. This partnership layer, okay, in the three-layer stack, right? This partnership layer is where most of the complications come in marriage, okay? So here's the three-layer stack: ministry, household, right? Finances, raising children, careers and future, life and family plans, and then extended family. Now, I'm sure that you can all think about issues where, that's complicated for us. I mean, there are usually many, many issues in here. So what I'd like to do is get through, and then we can start talking about things that are issues in your lives. So, marriage is a partnership. I'm going to read 3 verses, and I've heard some people say, the idea that husband and wife are partners is kind of a modern, egalitarian, worldly view. The Bible says the man is the head and the woman is the helper, okay? But these 3 verses talk about I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying that partnership is another way of looking at it that is also biblical. Okay? In Proverbs chapter 2, verses 16 to 17, wisdom will save you also from the adulterous woman. So this is about talking about adultery. It says, wisdom will save you also from the adulterous woman, from the wayward woman with her seductive words, who has left the partner of her youth and ignored the covenant she made before God. So even though this is a negative verse in the sense it's talking about avoiding adultery, it actually has some really potent points about marriage from a biblical point of view. That marriage is a covenant that you made before God with one another. You entered into a covenant. And that this talks about this woman being the partner, a partner with her husband from her youth. Let's look at in Malachi chapter 2, verse 14. There's a similar statement. And Malachi is the prophet is speaking the word of the Lord, and he is condemning the people of Israel. He says, the Lord is the witness between you and the wife of your youth. You have been unfaithful to her, though she is your partner, the wife of your marriage covenant. Partnership is a biblical framework to look at marriage through. Even in the New Testament, in 1 Peter 3, verse 7, what does it say? We read it yesterday. Husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner. Okay? It's true. And by the way, we should never get hung up on the description of weaker. It's not meant to be negative. It's just that women are generally weaker than men. Okay? They have less fortitude, and the husband needs to take that role, generally speaking, to protect the woman and to help the woman and so forth to get through. But the point is that I wanted to point out here is that the Bible describes husband and wife as partners. Okay? You have different attributes in some areas. I may be the weaker partner. Okay? In some areas. In general, the point is that we are partners. And look at how it elaborates on this. And heirs with you. That is, you're going to inherit eternal life just the same. They're heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. Partnership is a very important and scriptural frame to view our relationship with our husband or wife. But this next one is a really great collection of verses about an inspiring couple in the scriptures who are such a team in the ministry. A powerful force in the ministry. And do you know who that would be in the New Testament? Who comes to mind? Priscilla and Aquila. And by the way, the wife is always named first. Don't know why, but that's just something to think about. Okay? Priscilla and Aquila. In Acts chapter 18, from the beginning to the end, there are many references. There are several references to Priscilla and Aquila. But I'll just mention that in Acts chapter 18, Paul had traveled to, I forget where he was at the moment, but there he met a Jew named Aquila, a native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had ordered all the Jews to leave Rome. Paul went to see them, and because he was a tent maker, as they were, he stayed and worked with them. So here's an example of where a married couple was invaluable in assisting Paul, an amazing apostle, in his ministry. And isn't that a great model? That our families, our marriages, are incredible, stable places of support for the ministry. That you'll find that the teens are always over at your house, or you're always having Bible talk over at your house, or the leaders can count on you to host a leaders meeting at your house, or whatever. Your home becomes an incredible support. In this case, it was not their home, it was their livelihood. Paul needed some work, and he found Priscilla and Aquila. They're tent makers, and he says, well, I know something about that. I've been a tent maker, so can we team up? So evidently, Paul's livelihood was taken care of in conjunction with this wonderful couple. Now, they ended up, verse 18, they sailed for Syria together, accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila. So Paul is going on a mission trip. Who goes with him? Married couple, Priscilla and Aquila. A great married couple. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, and this is when what they encountered was they encountered Apollos. And Apollos was preaching about Jesus, okay, and it was wonderful and everything, but he was missing some things. Like he hadn't really heard about the baptism of Jesus, he just knew about the baptism of John. So he had evidently heard about Jesus from before Jesus was crucified and was still teaching about him in some far-flung area of the empire. So Apollos was preaching about Jesus, but Priscilla and Aquila heard him. It says, when Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately. So here's a married couple studying the Bible with people, okay? And impressing people, okay? Having them in their home, studying the Bible together. So married couples can be a powerful evangelistic force for the gospel. Amen. And Priscilla and Aquila are an inspiring example of teamwork. In fact, they're mentioned 3 other places in the Bible. Romans 6 verse 3 says, greet Priscilla and Aquila, my co-workers in Christ Jesus. Amen. Did Paul value the support of married couples in his ministry? Yeah. You bet he did. I mean, Paul was amazing. And he said he called Priscilla and Aquila his co-workers. You know, that's what you all are. That's what we are together for one another. We are co-workers in the gospel. In 1 Corinthians 16, verse 19, Aquila and Priscilla greet you warmly in the Lord, and so does the church that meets at their house. Married couples are great. Having people opening their homes. Yeah, drinks get spilled on your carpet, and people accidentally knock things off the cabinet and break things. And it's okay. It's the Lord's home. It's our pleasure to offer it in behalf of the kingdom. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, the end of Paul's life, what does he say? Greet Priscilla and Aquila. Yeah. Priscilla and Aquila are an amazing example of teamwork. These 7 areas that are partnership areas, it would take too long to go through each one and say meaningful things. I mean, each one of them is a a series of lessons. Okay? But by grouping them into this category and saying it is your duty, it is your challenge, it is something to be worked on as a married couple, this is what's needed for you is to learn the art of continual communication and collaboration and sacrifice on behalf of the other in order to find your way in each of these areas. One of the biggest challenges in partnership is divvying up the responsibilities, right? So this is focusing on, all of these aspects, like who's going to pay the bills, who's going to keep the budget, who's going to vacuum the house, who's going to clean the house, who's going to prepare the food, who's going to take care of the kids in this regard or that regard. You both have duties to raise those children. In fact, the father is given the biblical duty of raising the children to love the Lord. So fathers and mothers, you both have roles in all these areas. In fact, the division of labor is largely cultural, generally speaking. You think that's a man's job and that's a woman's job. Well, so if you want to go with the cultural thing, that's fine. Okay? Susan has only worked for 2 years or so during our marriage. She's been at home and with the kids. And not just at home. When we say the woman's at home, what we mean is she's everywhere doing everything. Okay? All kinds of. And there's so many times in our lives when we just said, how could we have gotten through without you being free to take care of all these issues? We actually have a child with special medical needs, and how could we have raised her if Susan wasn't available? So I would just put to you that the division of responsibilities in your marriage should be seen not primarily as a biblical matter, nor as a cultural matter. You decide in your marriage whether you want to conform to the cultural norms or whether you want to do something different. Okay? What matters is that you are in agreement, that you are one, that you are united. Now, let me give you some tips. This is the way I look at it. Okay? As the leader in the household, all responsibility is mine. The buck stops with me. If it's not done, it's my responsibility. Which is why I'm so grateful to be married to such a wonderful, competent, powerful, effective woman. And the things that she does, I praise her for. I have never in my whole married life complained about a meal. Never. Now, in part, that's the single brother in me, being just grateful for something to eat. Okay? And for some husbands, it's a bigger deal to have the food. Anyway, you should communicate about it. But the bottom line is that if she wasn't available to do it, you'd have to be doing it yourself. Okay? So be grateful. Every single meal she's put on the table, I have been grateful for, and I have praised her for it. Now, there are times where we look at each other and we say, is this a repeat? Yeah, I don't think this was your finest work. Okay? It's good to be honest and say, that was a recipe that maybe we won't try again. Okay? Or here's another way I say it is, that was good for variety, but maybe we won't repeat that. Okay? But I praise her for what she does. And if she wasn't doing it, I would be doing it. There was a time where I was off at work, so she was at home, I had more time, there were 4 kids, and she did the bills. Okay? Is that weird because that's the man's job? I don't read that in the Bible. Maybe it's culturally normal that way. Anyway, she was available. She had the skills. She did the bills. I'm fine with that. She did a great job with the bills. You know what? Sometimes she was late with bills. And sometimes that incurred fees. And did I get on her case? You must do the bills better. Don't you realize how much this cost us, that late fees? No, because if I don't like the way she's doing it, guess who gets to do it? Me. Yeah. You know, I'm perfectly free to take over doing the bills. If I want to do the bills, I don't think she'll have one problem with that. Okay? So I don't get on her case. If she's not doing the bills right, if she's not doing the bills right, I can say, honey, would you like some help doing the bills and stuff? But there came a time, and this happens in marriage. You go through seasons in life. And what worked for you when you were a young married couple doesn't work for you when you have children, young children. And what works for you when you have young children doesn't work for you when they're getting into secondary school or high school. Things are different. Things change. Then when they go into college, then when they leave the home, and you're an empty nest, seasons of life, things change. You gotta adapt. So, you know I'm sterile, right? I mentioned that. I had cancer in college, and I'm sterile. So we adopted our first child, and we were getting ready to adopt our second child, and she was pregnant. God is great. But God was great the first time. You know, and the way, and so we put that adoption on hold, and she gave birth. But she told me, Steve, I can no longer do the bills. I need you to do the bills. Yeah. So that's fine. She's pregnant. She's got a lot more on her mind and on her feet than the bills. So I started doing the bills, and I've been doing the bills ever since. We just communicated, and we switched up. And you know, sometimes I'm late with the bills. And sometimes that incurs a late fee. And you know what? She never gets on my case. She never nags me and says, why don't you do the bills better? Because you know what? If she wants to do the bills, she's welcome to do the bills. You know what she does instead? She says, honey, would you like me to sit with you at the computer this evening and we can do the bills together? Oh, that's so supportive. Okay. And I say, no, I just need to do it. So I'll do it tonight, I promise. And knock out the bills. But you know, we just work together. And so here's, if the husband sees it as his responsibility to do everything, and then you communicate with your wife, how do you want to divvy up these responsibilities? You'll find good ways. But if she cannot do it, or she cannot do it as you want it to be done, guess what? It's yours. Yeah. Well, that's how we work it. And it works really well. And so we're continually grateful to one another. Both partners are always grateful to each other under this model, because if the partner didn't do it, then you got to do it. So we're just grateful for everything that we do together.
You know, the one who is most particular about how a job should be done is the one that should do it. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, if you're really particular about the way the vacuuming is done or the sweeping is done, then whether it's the husband or wife, that person should do it. If you are particular about how your children are dressed, then maybe you should be the one that helps go shopping for the clothes for the children. Whatever it is, if you're particular about it, then that person does it. And there have been some times Steve's helping me with the dishes at night, and we'll often get into the kitchen and work all together to clean it up quick and get it done. And if I start to correct him on that's not the way to load the dishwasher, then he'll say, would you like to do it? And I'm like, you can load the dishwasher however you want to load the dishwasher. But that is really important. I'm more particular about maybe how the house is decorated. And so, or if I liked I wanted to buy a picture for the wall, then I would I would make that decision. I might ask his input. I want to buy a picture for the wall. Do you have an opinion? He's like, no. And then but I might bring two home and say, which one do you like the best? But just being a little sensitive to him as the one that's particular about it, but letting each other recognize if you have strong feelings about something, then you might be the one that should take the lead on that.
Yeah, that principle will really help you.
Yes.
Okay? Because if you don't like the way your spouse is doing something, why don't you think about doing it for a week and see if you want to just appreciate what she's doing. Or he. Okay, so here's some more guidance. Consider your gifts. By gifts, that like your God-given gifts, your strengths and weaknesses, right? Consider your God-given gifts. Who should be doing what may depend on who's been gifted by God to do that thing, right? Consider your gifts, your preferences, your skills, your availability, right? Someone may be available to do a thing. Like, for instance, if Susan is going to go out and study the Bible with a lady in the evening, you know what? She usually does the dishes. But she's out studying the Bible with someone. You bet I'm going to do the dishes. Okay? And I try to do it. I try to load the dishwasher the way she likes. But it's okay. She'll come back and just rearrange the dishwasher a little bit. Okay? But I've already done the job. She could, if she wanted, she could just push it in and push the button. Yeah. And but the point is, there's give and take. We make up for one another. Do you know what? We're a good team. We're a good team. So consider your availability. Consider your culture. And then agree on the responsibilities. That's the important part. Then help each other. Be a good team. Okay, self-reflection. So you remember how each one of the lessons that is among the first 4 have 2 sections that are homework. Okay, at the end, 2 slides that are homework. This is self-reflection. Okay, this is something for you each to think about independently from each other. First of all, right, are my spouse and I unified on these topics? And when I say these topics, I mean, these topics, right? All these areas, or anything else you can think of. Okay? Are my spouse and I unified on these topics? Think about it, pray about it. Some self-reflection. Does it feel like we're unified? Am I doing my part in each of these areas to the best of my abilities? Think about that for yourself, right? Are you doing enough so that your spouse doesn't feel like they're doing the bulk? You don't want that feeling. We already talked about that yesterday, okay? And then what areas should I bring up with my spouse for discussion? So, bringing topics up for discussion is hard. Having open conversation with your spouse is hard. Getting out of a rut, right, is hard. Like, you've got a pattern, you may be not really happy with it, but it seems to work. You're surviving with it. Should you really rock the boat by talking about changing? Yes, you should. It's a lifestyle, a lifetime of growing together as partners. That's why bringing in a habit of ongoing communication is so important. So reflecting individually, saying, I need to bring this up is important. Because otherwise, you just may never bring it up. Okay? I want to talk about the division of labor around the house. I remember as a kid, my mom announcing one time, we need to have a conversation about how the dishes are done. And there was a new family regime which came in, okay? The old family regime, which was we all duck out of the kitchen and go watch TV, and my mom does the dishes. That was the old regime. The new regime was all the family stays in the kitchen and does the dishes together until they're all done. This is what I was thinking of. The example, Susan was talking about finances. You know what neither of us are good at? Preparing for tax season. And I have businesses, okay? I got a couple of businesses I own, and I'm really bad at the administration, okay? And preparing for tax season, you got to get the slips out for the employees and the contractors. They have a certain deadline. And I just had to say, you know, Susan, okay, I'm late with this. I need help with it. For now, what I need is encouragement, okay? I am going to tackle that tonight, and then I'm going to come tell you how I did on it. I need to pull her in. And she really didn't do the work for me. I was the one who had to do it. I mean, she didn't have the capacity to do that work. I had to do it, but I needed her support. And she didn't get on my case for being, negligent, being late with stuff. It's just like, okay, sure, I'll come sit with you.
And it's funny, sometimes we have an office and one of us will come to the other one and we're like this, like in a victory pose. And we're like, that means I did something that's really hard that I've been putting off for a long time.
Discussion with your spouse. How are we doing and how can we do better in all these areas? So think about that, and that's a lot of opportunity for discussion between you and your spouse. And then there's this ongoing question. I keep slipping it in here. Yeah, who are the couples we want to be close to who can help us as we grow in our marriage? So that's just an important one, and you can resolve it, and then you don't have to keep talking about it. Okay? I put 3 in there because, if you only have one couple that's helping you, that knows you and is helping you in your marriage, that's probably not enough, but it's better than nothing. Okay? Get started with 1. And then get 2 or 3 who know you, who you can call, who you can be open with, who know you, who you can trust.